Alright, hey guys, today is Wednesday, April 22nd for Algebra 1. We're on pages 509 through 409 through 413. Basically, I'm just going to start working some problems and going through it with you. So your assignment's going to be basically 1 through 36. And so I'm going to work several of them, and then y'all can just finish up the rest and make sure you're just paying attention as we go through. And so, again, for this lesson, our problem is when we're looking at these, is when our denominator equals to 0. Because when our denominator equals 0, we have a problem. It's not defined at that location, which means it's undefined. And so basically we're going to see, okay, where is our denominator equal to 0, like what we did yesterday. The only difference is what we did yesterday, the numerator, the top, was basically insignificant. It didn't impact us whatsoever. Today, the numerator, the top, is going to impact us. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to have to factor the top if we can, and then we're going to have to factor the bottom if we can, and then see what we can cancel if we can. And then once we do that, we can look at the bottom and say, okay, where does this equal to 0? And then say that's our problem in our graph. And so for number 1, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and factor the numerator. So the numerator is 3x plus 6. So I have to factor that. So that's just two terms, an x term, and then a number term. And so what does 3x and 6 have in common? Well, they don't have a variable in common, but 3 and 6, what do they have in common? Well, 3 has a 3, and a 6 has a 3. So basically I can divide out, I can pull out a 3 from both of those. And so when I pull a 3 out, that'll leave me with 3 divided by 3 is x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So basically all I did there was I factored out the 3. So I pulled out the 3. So when I pulled out the 3, that left me with an x, and then it left me with 6 divided by 3, which was 2. Now I can do the denominator, so I'm going to factor the denominator. So again, this can do guess and checks. So Martine, what does this negative say in the denominator? Different signs, and so I have my 2 parentheses. I know I'm going to be using different signs. One's a minus, one's a plus. So I'm going to do factors of 2, which are 2 and 1. So I can just put them in there. And then the factors of x are x and x. And so one will be an x, one will be an x. And now I'm just going to check it. Remember to check it. You're just going to do x times 2, which is 2x. Negative 1 is negative there. So I'm looking for a positive x. That is what I was checked. That was my check. And so that's good. That tells me that those are the factors. Okay? So I factored the top, I factored the bottom. Now I'm going to look at it. What do you see? Well, what you should see is that I have an x plus 2 on the top, and I have an x plus 2 on the bottom. So the x plus 2 on the top will cancel with the x plus 2 on the bottom. They go away. So then that leaves me with just 3 over x minus 1 as my answer. So that would be my answer. That's this in simplified form. The other thing I have to do is say, okay, where can this bottom not equal 0? Where does it equal 0 on the bottom, so that I can say that it can't be that. And so I'm just going to set x minus 1 equal to 0. Add 1 over to the other side, and so x cannot equal 1. And so I would say that's the simplified form, and then x cannot equal 1. So those would be my two answers. 3 over x minus 1 is in its simplest form, and then x cannot equal 1 because that's where the denominator would be 0. And so that would be an example like number 1. So again, factor the top, factor the bottom, see what cancels, and then do what we did yesterday. So number 6, same thing. I have 5x plus 10, 5x minus 10. So I'm going to factor the numerator first. And so what does 5x and 10 have in common? Well, it doesn't have a variable in common, but it does have a number in common. And so I can pull out a 5, because 5 will go to 5, 5 will go to 10. And so when I pull out a 5, that'll leave me with 5 divided into this. So 5 divided by 5 just leaves me with the x. Then 5 will go into 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2. So I have x plus 2. Again, whenever I pull out, I just divide. So they had a 5 in common, so I just do 5x divided by 5, just leaves me the x, and then 10 divided by 5 just leaves me the 2. So that gives me the numerator. Now the denominator is going to work similarly. And so I'm going to say, okay, what do the 5x and the 10 have in common? Well, they both have a 5. And I'll leave you with 5x divided by 5, just leaves me with an x. Negative 10 divided by 5 leaves me with a negative 2. Then I'm going to look at it, and I did my factoring. So now I'm going to look at it and say, what do they have in common? Can I cancel anything? Well, the x plus 2 and x minus 2 can't cancel because those are different. Remember, it has to be exactly the same. X plus 2 and x plus 2 cancels. And so I can't cancel those, but notice I have a 5 and a 5, so those will drop off. It's 5 divided by 5 is 1, so those drop off. And so your final answer is just x plus 2 divided by x minus 2. So that's the simplified form portion. Now we do what we did yesterday and said, okay, where does our denominator equal 0? And so I'm going to set x minus 2, the denominator, equal to 0. Add 2 to the other side, so x equals 2. So that tells me my second part of my answer is x cannot equal 2. If x equaled 2, then we would have the 0 in the denominator, which is bad. And so x cannot equal 2. And so that's pretty much all we're doing. So really the only problem you'll have an issue with is, can you remember our skills to factor and pull stuff out? If you remember that from our previous chapters, then this is basically just figuring out where the denominator is 0. And so we'll do number 11. So number 11 gives us x squared plus 9x plus 20 divided by 2x plus 8. So again, start with your numerator, factor it. And so I'm going to factor x squared plus 9x plus 20. So again, we'll go to Lydia this time. What does the plus sign by the 20 tell us? Should tell us that when we factor, it's going to be the same signs. And so we're going to have our parentheses. We're going to put the same sign in here. So we're trying to get to a positive 9x. So that's going to tell me that both of those are going to be positive. Okay? So then I'm going to do factors of 20. Factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 5 and 4. And I think that's about it. So those are my options. Factors of x squared are x and x. So I know I'm going to throw in x's there. So now I'm going to pick one of these three options, and I'm trying to get to a 9x. So which one of those three, when I do my check, would get me to the 9? Of course, that would be a 5 and a 4. And so that would be the top. Now the bottom, 2x plus 8. What do the 2x and the 8 have in common? They don't have an x in common, but they do have a 2 in common. So I can factor out a 2. And then the x, 2x divided by 2 just leaves me with an x. 8 divided by 2 leaves me with a 4, so it's x plus 4. So there we go, x plus 4. And so looking at that now, when I'm looking at it, what cancels? Does anything cancel? Okay, yeah, the x plus 4 can cancel. So that leaves me with just the x plus 5 over 2 as my answer here. Okay, now think about it. Which one of these, so for this one, think about it. If I have the 2 in the denominator, it doesn't give me anything that basically, there's no way to set 2 equals 0, so working in equal 2. So what has to happen is, you still have to keep in mind where your actual zeros would be. And so this one wound up canceling, but since it went away here at the end, you can't really see it, but it's really still there, it's just simplified down. And so we really still need to keep in track of this one right here, even though it canceled, that's still in there somewhere. And so you have to keep track of that and understand that that, x plus 4 equals 0, still is in there. So we still have to say that our x cannot equal negative 4. Because even though it canceled, if we wound up with a negative 4 right here in this step, it would blow everything up. So you still have to keep track of basically where things break down. And so it canceled, but it's still there, and so you still have to keep track of it. And so x could still not equal negative 4. And so that's important to keep track of where those actually are. Now 22 is the last one we'll do, or we may do a couple more. But 22 says x squared plus 4xy plus 4y squared. So I'm going to factor the numerator. The only thing they did here was they threw in two variables, and so you just have to keep track of that. But factoring it, what does this plus sign say? That they're both the same sign. Okay? Now when I factor the 4y squared, then that'll factor the 4, the variable, the number part could be 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. Then y squared just means what times what equals y? Well, y and y. So y, 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 y. It basically, this part works the same as this part when you're factoring. So we can have 1y, 4y, 2y, and 2y, and then the x squared we can have x and x. And so the x and x are just going to fill in. Now I'm trying to get to a positive 3, positive 4. Positive 4. And so it would be, I would want to choose these two, the 2y and 2y. So it would be x plus 2y, x plus 2y would be the numerator. Then the denominator, you would factor the same way. Factors of 2y here would be 1y and 2y. Factors of x would be x and x. Filling it in would be x, parentheses, x, parentheses. It is a plus, which tells me they're going to be the same sign. Then just fill in the 1y and the 2y. Alright, now I can look to see, okay, what cancels? Well, I have an x plus 2y and an x plus 2y, so those cancel, and that leaves me with just x plus 2y over x plus 1y as my answer. Now I just have to figure out what can x not equal. And so if you look, this was number 22. So 22, what can x not equal? Hold on. So you have to keep in mind here what we end up messing up, what we ended up canceling, x plus 2y. So that would set x plus 2y equal to 0. And so basically, x cannot equal negative 2y. So x cannot equal negative 2y, and that would be the simplest form. And so that pretty much is all you're going to have to do. You just have to keep in mind your factoring, how you factor, but outside of that, that's all you're going to have to do. Real quick with me, look at number 29. I'm not going to write it on the board, but look at it. 29, they basically already do. So they have the b minus a on bottom, the y minus x on bottom, and the m minus 3. And so when you're seeing, okay, when can it not equal a, you basically set each of those equal to 0 and tell me where they cannot equal. Because notice basically all of them are going to cancel. The numerator and denominator are going to cancel on all of it. So you end up with just 1, and then you just have to tell me down there on the bottom where they cannot equal 0. Okay? So what I need you to do is basically 1 through 36. Just try them. If you have any questions with the factoring or where to cancel, where to set equal to 0, get up with me. But that should be sufficient in getting y'all started there. And so again, if you have any questions, just make sure you get up with me. But that'll pretty much be it. So 1 through 36 on page 412 and 413. Hope you have a good day.